Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and it's time for another instant deck tech. And boy do we have a sweet one today. This is a crazy deck. Esper Brain Gifts recently took Xanthus de Hoon to a top 8 finish at a European Modern event, so congrats to Xanthus on their finish with the deck. A quick reminder before we break it all down, if you enjoy this deck and want to see it made into videos, take a minute, click the like button, the subscribe button, leave a comment, anything you can do to support your deck, because whichever deck is most popular gets a shot at being made into videos next week. So, Esper Brain Gifts is built around Brain in the Jar. You probably know what this one does. We've played this one before in Standard. It's kind of the spell version of Ether Vial. 2 mana, you can pay 1, tap it, put a charge counter on it, and then you get to cast an instant or sorcery with the converted mana cost equal to the number of charge counters on Brain in the Jar for free. So, first time you do this, you can cast something with 1 converted mana cost, second time 2 converted mana costs, goes up the chain. Then you can also remove those charge counters and get scry by paying 3 and tapping. So the idea of this deck is you get your Brain in the Jar in the battlefield and kind of go up the chain of value with instants and sorceries, and hopefully the Brain in the Jar will be able to win you the game by letting you cast this stuff for free and cheating on mana. So the easiest way to kind of break down a Brain deck is to go by converted mana cost, so you get to see what you're doing. Brain in the Jar starts with 0 counters. The first time you activate it, it goes up to 1 counter, and you have a few options. So you get Discard, Inquisition of Kozilek, Thoughtseize, also the 1 converted mana cost cards, like Inquisition, Thoughtseize, you can actually just cast on turn 1 since Brain is 2 mana, so it gives you something to do with your mana then. Other options include Disfigure and Path to Exile as removal, and also Noxious Revival. You have some cards that are pretty important and really powerful in the deck, and being able to get them back on top of your deck and reuse them can sometimes be pretty important. So then the second time you activate your Brains, you get up to 2 counters, which means you get to cast 2 mana spells, and here are the big ones. The sweetest part of the deck is you can cast a Beck Call, and one of the tricks with Brain is when you cast a split card, like Beck Call, even though Call costs 6 mana, and Beck is the one that's 2 mana, you can fuse both halves. So on the second activation of Brain in the Jar, you can fuse Beck Call, 8 converted mana worth of card for just 2 counters, essentially for free. When you do that, as early as turn 4, I guess, you get 4 1/1 flyers from Call, and you get to draw 4 cards from Beck. So just a really absurd play when you can do that through the Brain in the Jar. Casting it, of course, is 8 mana, not very good, but with Brain in the Jar, it's really absurd. Far Away gives you some additional value, kind of a 2-for-1, get to bounce a creature and make a player sacrifice a creature. Same thing, you can activate your Brain for 2 and get both of them. Other options at 2 mana include more removal, like Abrupt Decay and Agony Warp. Peer Through Depths lets you dig through your deck, find your Beck Calls, find your removal, and even a tricky Trick Bind, which is basically the modern version of Stifle. And then at 3 mana, you get some more options. Anguish Unmaking gives you a unconditional removal spell, hits planeswalkers, artifacts, enchantments, you name it. Esper Charm lets you draw some cards or lets your opponent discard some cards, and then Lingering Soul is just very powerful, stalls out the board, can even win the game with the 1/1 flyers. Getting up to 4 mana, you get Languish and Supreme Verdict, so 2 different wraths, and then the gifts part of the deck, Gifts Ungiven. So Gifts Ungiven lets you create some value gifts packages to find your Beck Calls and things like that. This is also where Noxious Revival comes in. If Noxious Revival is in a pile with Languish and Supreme Verdict, you know you're going to end up getting a Wrath because you can Noxious Revival back, something your opponent puts in the graveyard. So it's pretty much a value plan, but you can also, with your gifts, off 4 Brain counters, or just casting it, get your Unburial Rights, and the 1 creature in the main deck, Elish Norn Grand Cenobite, Elish Norn, to wipe away your opponent's board and keep things under control. That way also pumps up all your spirit tokens, all your Beck Call tokens. So that's kind of how the deck eventually wins the game. Just a reminder, the finishers, it's really hard to win with just an Elish Norn. So the way the deck is actually looking to win is by Beck calling off the Brain in the Jar for the big card draw plus the flyers and Lingering Souls, so you're really looking to win with 1/1 flyers, sometimes pumping them up with the help of Elish Norn. As far as the mana base, I didn't put all the lands in here because there's a wide variety. It's a 4-color deck, there's even some green in here, even though we're calling it Esper. There's a wide variety of fetches and shock lands and basics. The only land that really stuck out was 4 copies of Shambling Vent as a creature land. In the sideboard, we get a few different things. So Iona and Linvala are backup plans for the Gifts Ungiven Unburial Rights package. So you, instead of Elish Norn, can get an Iona, lock an opponent out of the game, get a Linvala to gain a bunch of life if you're in an aggro matchup. Kitchen Finks also helps against aggro, gains you some life against burn and decks like that. Then we get a bunch more removal in Engineered Explosives and Liliana the Last Hope. Nile Spellbomb and Relic of Progenitus help against Dredge and Snapcaster decks to hate on the graveyard. And then you get a bunch more Brain in the Jar possibilities. Invasive Surgery, great against things like Scapeshift. Path to Exile and Thoughtseize, more removal and discard spells. At 2 mana, you get another Agony Warp and Hurkyl's Recall to fight against Affinity. And then at 3 mana, you get Flaying Tendrils, also pretty good against Affinity, even some burn decks where there's a lot of creatures, just wipe everything away. And that is the insanity of Esper Brain's Gifts in Modern. And anyway, that's been our Instant Deck Tech for today. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will talk to you soon.